The camera glides over a row of transport trailers, lined up at dawn, like a fleet of mobile ecosystems. Their cargo isn't static. It breathes, moves, reacts. Inside, hundreds of pigs wait, each one a biological unit in motion. But this is not chaos. It's a controlled, engineered flow. And what happens here in the narrow corridors of these trailers has more in common with a high-precision automotive plant than a rural barn. Transporting pigs at scale is not a matter of just moving animals from farm to slaughterhouse. It's a logistical puzzle governed by biomechanics, stress regulation, and millimeter-calibrated ergonomics. Every step in the process, loading, transit, unloading, is designed to balance density with welfare, speed with stability. Much like Toyota's legendary assembly lines, where human movement is mapped, optimized, and repeated with surgical accuracy, pig transport today is evolving into a discipline of controlled motion under biological tension. Consider the concept of the space pressure index. It's not a buzzword, it's a measurable variable used by some of the most advanced integrators in Europe and Asia. This index captures the volume available to each pig during critical transition phases. Not just during the ride, but also during the loading ramps, holding partitions, and unloading chutes. Too much compression in any of these phases, and the consequences ripple through the entire system. Higher levels of cortisol, increased injuries, lower meat quality. This isn't theoretical, it's quantifiable. And in high-density routes, small miscalculations become exponential losses. To understand how far this thinking has gone, look at how naval engineers designed sleeping quarters in submarines like the Los Angeles-class attack subs. There, crew members endure long missions inside floating steel cylinders, every cubic inch of space calculated for psychological resilience and physiological needs. Sound familiar? Pig trailer zoning layouts now borrow that same spatial logic. Compartments are redesigned not just to hold, but to regulate by volume, airflow, and movement patterns. It's not just about fitting pigs. It's about protecting them from each other and from the environment through structure. Now picture this. On one side of the screen, a time-lapse of a car chassis rolling through a robotic assembly line, parts added in rhythm, workers moving with exact timing. On the other side, pigs entering a trailer with angled partitions, guided by acoustic cues and dynamic gating systems. Two seemingly unrelated worlds, yet both rely on the same principle, orchestrating motion through space to minimize error, injury, and waste. This is the new face of livestock transport. Less like herding, more like choreography. In it, engineering is not just behind the truck, it's inside it, designing how pigs move, breathe, rest, and arrive. Because inside every trailer, there's more than cargo. There's a silent ballet of logistics, technology, and biology, moving not just pigs, but the very future of protein logistics. From the outside, a pig transport trailer looks like a sealed metallic container built for strength and mobility. But inside, it's a climate chamber in motion. A microenvironment governed by airflow, surface temperature, animal heat, and external weather. And when thousands of pigs move through a closed metallic box, what's invisible becomes critical. Heat doesn't spread evenly. Air doesn't circulate like it does in an open barn. What forms inside is a biothermal trap, layered zones of extreme temperatures that stress animals in silence. On stacked trailers, this problem intensifies. The pigs in the upper decks, closest to the sun-heated ceiling, often experience heat zones that spike beyond 35 degrees Celsius, even when external temperatures are moderate. Meanwhile, the lower decks remain in partial shadow, exposed to drafts and cooling currents from the road. The result is a thermal imbalance. Hyperthermia above, hypothermia below. From the surface, everything looks calm. Inside, animals are fighting a temperature war. And traditional fan systems are blind to this variation. This is where engineering stepped in. Borrowing from greenhouse climate control, a new solution emerged. Airflow zoning systems designed through computational fluid dynamics. CFD simulations don't just show airflow, They predict it in motion. They map how hot air accumulates, how cold zones stall, and how the movement of pigs themselves alters the microclimate. In these simulations, each vent is recalibrated for real-time correction. More than a fan, it's an adaptive system, shifting ventilation patterns second by second. In Denmark, a transport company equipped its fleet with adaptive airflow algorithms. In a single season, they saw cortisol levels drop by 28% across multiple transport conditions. The pigs arrived calmer, cleaner, and with fewer bruises. Measurable benefits for welfare and yield. But data wasn't the only revelation. Drivers reported fewer stops due to restlessness. Unloading became smoother. What began as an airflow problem turned out to be a chain reaction across the entire logistics cycle. In Brazil, the stakes were even higher. A 6-hour shipment across the state of Goiás resulted in a 9% live weight loss due to thermal stress. That one trip meant over 2 tons of lost pork, simply from poor internal airflow. After redesigning the trailer's lateral venting system with segmented zoning flaps, that loss dropped to under 2%. No major overhaul, just intelligent redirection of air. These are not minor tweaks. They are structural decisions that affect animal health, economic returns, and logistical reliability. Because temperature in live cargo is not a fixed value. It's a moving variable shaped by design. And in this design, the map that matters most isn't the GPS on the dashboard. It's the invisible air map inside the trailer, the one that decides whether pigs arrive in good condition or not at all. Inside every livestock trailer, space is limited, but behavior has no walls. Confinement doesn't just compress bodies, it intensifies instincts. And in the case of pigs, a species with a strict social hierarchy, this pressure can ignite conflict. What happens when animals that don't know each other are packed tightly together? What happens when the hierarchy is broken by artificial groupings? The answer lies in sudden outbreaks of aggression that spread like electrical sparks through the trailer, fast, damaging, and unpredictable. The root of the problem often begins before the trailer doors even close. For years, pigs were grouped by weight for transport, under the assumption that similar body size would ensure stability. But this method ignores social behavior. Dominance, fear, response, and familiarity can't be measured in kilograms. And when unfamiliar pigs are confined together without behavioral consideration, the result is delayed loading, stress-induced fighting, and in some cases, in-transit injuries that go unnoticed until unloading. To address this, engineers and animal behaviorists turned to a surprising source of inspiration: poultry vision systems. Originally developed to monitor movement patterns in broiler houses, this technology uses machine learning to identify behavior profiles, recognizing patterns in posture, grouping, and movement that suggest aggression or submission. Now, that same technology is being adapted for pigs, allowing farms to pre-sort animals not by weight, but by behavioral signature. The results have been striking. In North Carolina, a trial on a commercial transport fleet showed a 43% reduction in injuries during transport when pigs were grouped by behavior type. These weren't high-tech trailers. They weren't even climate-controlled. The only variable that changed was the way the pigs were selected and separated before loading. The logic is simple. Manage conflict before it starts, and the whole system stabilizes. In Vietnam, the innovation went even further. A large pork exporter implemented an AI-assisted pre-sorting system that analyzed a group behavior days before transport. Within just 2 months, the rejection rate at the slaughterhouse dropped from 8% to 1.9%. The investment paid for itself not in years, but in weeks. Less bruising, less stress, better meat, and above all, a transport process that respected the invisible rules pigs live by. Rules that don't vanish just because they're on the move. In live cargo logistics, time and distance are only part of the equation. Behavior is the unseen variable. It shapes how animals react to confinement, how they interact with each other, and how they endure the journey. This isn't just about transport anymore. It's about preemptive behavioral engineering. a form of planning that goes beyond crates and compartments into the realm of social dynamics. Because when logistics include biology, efficiency becomes not just possible, but sustainable. Across the global food chain, transportation often plays the role of a silent bridge, unseen, underappreciated, yet indispensable. But when the cargo is alive, that bridge becomes a battlefield of variables. Biological needs collide with mechanical limits. Space becomes pressure, movement becomes risk, and every kilometer traveled in tight quarters becomes a test of engineering, ethics, and efficiency. Pig transport, in particular, operates at a unique intersection of forces. Unlike grains or packaged goods, pigs are living beings with complex biological rhythms. They breathe, emit heat, interact socially, and respond to stress in measurable, physical ways. Yet, for decades, transport systems treated them as bulk weight, assigning value by volume, standardizing based on crate count, and designing trailers like scaled-up storage units. This approach was efficient but not intelligent. It moved mass but ignored dynamics. And the cost, though often hidden, was high. In bruising, in shrink loss, in stress-induced meat degradation. Today, a new mindset is reshaping this process, not by making trailers bigger, but by making them smarter. This transformation begins with a shift in perspective, recognizing that pig transport is not a bulk problem, but a biomechanical challenge, one that requires machines to respond not to weight alone, but to living complexity in motion. At the heart of this evolution is the idea of control, not in the sense of restraint, but in the sense of real-time responsiveness. A controlled system doesn't impose static conditions. It adapts. It listens. And in the most advanced transport fleets today, that listening happens through technology. RFID ear tags, once used only for traceability, now act as living sensors. They transmit not just location, but biometric data, body temperature, heart rate fluctuations, movement intensity. When aggregated across hundreds of pigs, this data becomes a behavioral map, a real-time picture of group stress, restlessness, or physical fatigue. In China's smart trailer fleets, these maps are no longer theoretical. They shape the journey itself. If a group's stress level spikes, ventilation parameters adjust automatically. If motion sensors detect excessive agitation, onboard systems delay acceleration or extend brake periods. If core body temperatures begin to drift upward, cooling vents shift direction to correct airflow balance. These aren't scheduled reactions. They're instant decisions made by embedded algorithms designed to preserve welfare in transit. But responsiveness is only one layer. The structural design of modern trailers is also evolving. No longer a series of static pens, new trailers feature modular compartments, zones that can be resized, separated, or opened in sequence to reduce crowding stress and facilitate smoother loading and unloading. Some systems even synchronize internal lighting to reduce visual stress during transitions. In high-density operations, these details matter. One extra second of hesitation at the ramp, one false step. That's all it takes for a stress reaction to cascade across a trailer of 200 animals. This focus on welfare engineering is not about aesthetics or idealism. It's about yield. Every bruise from a fight, every kilogram lost to thermal stress, every case of pale, soft, exudative (PSE) meat from excessive cortisol. That's revenue gone before the carcass is even cut. Precision logistics is the opposite of spectacle. It's the accumulation of small, invisible safeguards that protect the final quality at every point in the chain. That's why comparing pig trailers to combine harvesters isn't exaggeration. It's accuracy. Just as a combine must adjust to moisture, terrain, and crop density in real time, pig transport systems must adjust to heat load, behavior clustering, and spatial rhythm. A combine that harvests uniformly across a varied field leaves yield behind. A trailer that treats all pigs as equal in behavior, size, and stress tolerance will do the same. And yet, despite all this innovation, one truth remains. The most advanced system is still only as good as its ability to integrate with the biology it serves. That is the real frontier. Not automation for automation's sake, but responsive design that begins with the pig and works backward. Not treating animals as variables to be managed, but as complex organisms that shape the transport equation as much as any mechanical component. This is where the future of animal logistics lies. Not in transporting more pigs per trip, but in arriving with animals that are healthier, calmer, and more intact, physiologically and economically, in making sure that every kilometer traveled supports not just delivery, but dignity. Because inside every trailer is not just a load, it's the first chapter of the final product. And how that chapter is written will define everything that comes after. Volume alone no longer defines efficiency. Precision, adaptation, and respect for biological reality do. From confined to controlled, that is the shift. From mechanical movement to intelligent flow. In those quiet, narrow corridors on the road, a new kind of logistics is emerging, one that understands that in the movement of life, design is destiny.